The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of Bermuda's Feel Good Early Morning Show, Good Day Bermuda, supported by Pizza House and Aliana's Restaurant. I'm Terri Tuku alongside Jackie Lambert, and we are ready to bring you some feel good vibes this morning. Our feel good topic of the day is on ethics in journalism, or the ethics of journalism. We'll be bringing Maya Palacio of Media Maya into the studio for that discussion. And our feel good vibe of the day is, you should know who it's by if you've watched Good Day Bermuda for any length of time. The title of the video is Where's Toto? And you're definitely going to have a good giggle if you haven't seen that as yet. Before we get into all of that, let's see who is tuned in with us as we get started with our feel good warm-up of the day. So I see that we have Sean Smith. Good morning to you, Sean Smith, and good morning to Miss Carmen Mitchell-Jones. And we have converted Kathy Rogers. She is now officially a part of the Good Day Bermuda family. Kathy, welcome once again, and good morning to you, Rashida. Grand rising to you as well. We are going to get into our feel good warm up, which, if you watched this yesterday, we touched on a topic around, how the government officials are handling certain media representatives during the bi-weekly press conferences versus others. And we wanted to continue that conversation because we are going to speak with Maya, who is a representative of the media. So our first question for the feel good warm up is, how would you describe media coverage in Bermuda? And I kind of want this to be a generational conversation. So not just, within the last couple of years. Obviously, in the onset of the pandemic, the media have been a little bit more present than I would personally say in previous years. I would like us to talk about just media coverage in Bermuda overall, like over anyone's lifetime. How would you describe media coverage? And I want Jackie and I to obviously start that conversation. But before we get into that, good morning to you, Jennifer Butterfield. Thank you for tuning in with us. So Jackie and I are going to tell you how we would describe media coverage. Well, you let us know in the comments, what are your thoughts on media coverage in Bermuda? Jackie, as an athlete, so you've obviously had to come in contact with the media as a professional athlete representing Bermuda. What was that experience like for you? Like, what would you say was a good experience, or have you had some moments where you would just wish the media would leave you alone?
So overall, I've always had a decent rapport with the media because I would either sit next to my dad when he was getting interviewed, so we were able to build a relationship, a bond. There have been a few people that have attacked me in the media, but there's only one or two people in particular. One person that shocked me. It actually turned things upside down. My dad was the president, and it was a horrible match. The other person was cheating me. I didn't handle it. I didn't have any outbursts or anything, but I just wasn't as interested in the match anymore. I was still playing, but not as interested. And it was a huge write-up the next day that president's daughter needs disciplinary action. And I was just like, I didn't throw my racket. I wasn't cursing. I wasn't screaming down the place. I was just more so nonchalant about the whole situation. And it threw the sport in a frenzy. Like, people were arguing against each other. There were people that had actually watched the match that was trying to figure out what this gentleman was talking about. So that was like one. I probably only had like one off, but other than that, they've all watched me grow. Not the people that are in there now, but some of them. But they've watched me grow in the sport. They've watched the sport grow. So they have a different type of relationship. So if I finish the match and I'm not in the mood, I was able to just put my hand up and be like, I just need 5 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and then come back. But for the most part, I don't have a bad
No bad experiences. That's good. So as you're joining us in the comments, let us know how you would describe media coverage in Bermuda, whether you want to focus on just the most recent years or you have experiences or you have opinions on how it's been over the years. I know me personally, I haven't really been in the media for anything other than like, you know, maybe a sports competition, a quiz competition. So it wasn't like there was a direct interview with me. It was more just, you know, a report on the event that I was a part of. So I never really had any direct engagement with the media. So for me, it's always just been from the outside looking in, and there is some sensationalization of certain headlines, and you kind of just see how the reporting is just like, I don't necessarily know if I agree with the way that you chose to report or the tone of the article. And so now I feel offended for the person or the persons that you're writing about. And as a member of the public, I don't support certain media outlets because I just feel like, because I am someone who's so about the, you know, circulation of the Black dollar, and I know the power out that the dollar holds. So I tend to protest through my money. So look, I'll put my money into spaces where I think, or I'll put my money or my energy into spaces that I think are going to represent my people and represent or just be unbiased in the way that they cover things and just allow people to be people. I feel sometimes it's like, it feels like the media attacks people to get a reaction so that there can be something else to report. Like, it's like, okay, the topic is tennis, but we want to provoke this tennis player so that we can create something else around this match or this tournament.
I don't support that particular one. I know exactly which one, because I've sent in information, like we've interviewed via WhatsApp if I'm in Dominican Republic and stuff like that. And what I've typed is not what is in the paper. And I've done it as a player and I've done it as a coach. I remember one time doing it as a coach and I was praising my girls. Like, they did a phenomenal job they actually beat a country that they shouldn't have beaten. Like, if you look on paper, what these girls have been doing, I'm talking about the opponents, what they do, where they compete, what level they're at, compared to how my girls have been training. They were only in Bermuda, they were only playing amongst themselves and some of the other top athletes. And the way that they changed my words, I had parents calling me and attacking me, and I hadn't even seen the article yet. Right. So from that point on, I don't do reports based off of the other athlete. I will let either them do it, they can talk through with the parents, or I just have nothing to say until I get back, and I'll do a video.
Got you. We have some comments coming in. So Sheldon Jen says, good morning. Good morning, Sheldon. After living in a place where there's no shortage of news events, it seems like Bermuda media coverage sometimes reaches for headlines. This is what I've seen in the last 20 years. And that's very interesting too, because Sheldon used to live in the United States. And so we do know that they do not have a shortage of news outlets. We have a comment from Sean Smith Jack.
Since the internet, it is nice to see there are more independent journalists, news reporters, but I don't know if Bermuda has a lot of investigative journalism news reporters.
And I would say as a collective, probably not, but for the population size, you probably have enough, because I mean, everybody can't be the same type of journalist, right? Because then it's like, who's going to do the other avenues of news reporting? So I do think we probably don't have like the same numbers of countries that do have greater populations, but I do think that there are people in the different spaces that are taking on that those spaces. Awesome. So we have a comment from Carmen Mitchell-Jones. She says, in respect to news, that there has never seemed to be hard-hitting questions to find out information. Everything seems civilized but biased. As time has gone on, the headline didn't match the article, too much sensationalism and personality of the reporter. I agree. And I think that I do feel like, but then I'm also a creative. So I'm like, I feel like people should be able to add their spice to an article or add their personality. I do think that the objectivity of journalism is probably something that's going away. And that's why we want to talk with Maya about, because she's definitely someone who focuses on the ethics of journalism. And she's very open about the fact that she, she's doing it this way because. So I'm definitely excited to have Maya in the conversation. We're actually going to take a quick commercial break, and then we will bring Maya into the studio. So do make sure, if you are looking forward to that conversation with Maya, that you stay tuned.
Same smooth sounds, different name. BCG Radio, home of Bermuda's most engaging morning talk shows, The Daily Hour and Good Day Bermuda. Download the app, available for Android and Apple devices. BCG Radio, your station for conversations and entertainment.
Welcome back to Good Day Bermuda, supported by Pizza House and Aliana's Restaurant. I'm Jacky Lambert. That would be funny. Freaky Friday. I'm Terri Tuku alongside Jacky Lambert, and we have Media Maya back, or Maya Palacio of Media Maya backstage. We're going to bring her into the conversation very shortly, but I did want to touch on this comment from Jamal Hartman. He says, Bermuda doesn't have investigative journalists. Oh, investigative. I'm like, is that okay? Investigative journalist outside of, I believe, Sam Stangeways. If we're being honest, full-time, he means investigative journalism is a full-time job that requires a lot of time and research, which I do think that is true. And I do think that the return on the investment probably is what keeps people into a different genre or avenue of news reporting than, investigative journalism. And then we do have this one comment from Sheldon Jones, Jack.
I do like the rise of independent journalism and the participation of the public in news coverage. Comment sections are often more informative than the articles themselves.
Agreed. So as we switch gears into our feel-good topic of the day, which is ethical journalism, Maya Palacio is the woman behind Media Maya, the brand. She considers herself a Boondocks feminist, which I'm actually interested to find out why she considers herself that. Maya has truly become one of the leading, if not the only, media outlet that represents millennials and Gen Zers. I don't know if she intended for that to happen, but that's kind of how it's been. So we're going to bring Maya into the studio right now. Good morning, Maya. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. This is early for me.
I did. So I personally know Maya, and I've worked with her before, and I would send her and make messages like super early in the morning, and she wouldn't respond. She wouldn't respond, but I know she's not an early morning person. So I'm like, she'll get back to me eventually, and it'll be like 12 o'clock. And Maya's responding. I'm like, it's okay. So we do have this comment for you, Maya, before we get into the conversation. This is from Carmen Mitchell-Jones. She says that she loves you and your spirit. So let's actually talk about that. So can you share with us, your background and your education in media and why you chose this as your field?
Okay. I'll try to make it semi-quickly. So I got into journalism, I think, when I was in high school, I want to say. That was mainly because I did a lot of sports. I was an athlete. I did field hockey for Bermuda, on an international level, national squad team. And I played sports all throughout my life, always champion girl, things like that. Like I love sports. I live sports. I still believe that I do. And so I was really also good at writing. So I just started saying, well, let me start incorporating the two. So I used to write little articles, little paragraphs for the newspapers and stuff, or over summer times, burn news as well. So I worked with pretty much every media outlet here. And then when I graduated from high school, I was like, all right, journalism it is. Like, I like it. And so I went away to school in Canada. And then I realized that I knew a lot more about Canadian politics via my degree than I did about Bermuda politics. And then my interest kind of shifted over to politics. Once I came home for summers and things like that, I would, focus more on, what's going on, read the paper a little bit more in the politics section. Start following all the ministers and just seeing what they're talking about, what they're discussing, the topics that they're interested in, what they're doing for the community. And then I used to post it on my own Instagram when it was just really my own personal Instagram before it was even like Media Maya. So I still got pictures way back there if you want to scroll. But and I just started talking to everyone that followed me at the time, which is probably 2000, it was just early university times. And it was just like, hey, this is what was in the paper today. Oh, hey, this is what they're talking about today. Did you guys know this was happening? And then we just have little mini discussions. And that's kind of just how it started. And then it started to grow a little bit more. People really knew that my interest was journalism. And then, I'd still love to do sports. I got opportunities to talk to some people that came into Bermuda. I got opportunities to host the boxing with Channel 82 afterwards. So I graduated university. And I started really getting into journalism more on the island. Wasn't planning on staying on the island though, that's for sure. I actually had gotten my work permit to go back to Canada. I was planning to go to Toronto, and I packed my stuff, and then the pandemic hit, and I was like, all right, what are we gonna do? Like, we gotta make something happen here while you're here. And then I tweeted that one day after, watching all the press conferences and what's going on in Bermuda. And I would still talk about it on my own page, but obviously I wasn't wildly known on the island. And then I just tweeted that one day when I tried to figure out how to get in the press conference, and it just wasn't working. Like, I was going through all the avenues that they said I had to go through, trying to, speak to the right people, but I wasn't getting confirmation, and it just took too long. And I was getting a little frustrated, to be quite honest. So I'm just like, well, what do I have to do to be able to get there? I mean, I have a degree, I do this stuff, I have plenty of work experience. Like, there's no way I shouldn't be able to, be there. And then I tweeted, I want to be at the next press conference. And then the community did their thing. And then the premier DM'd me and said, do this. And I was like, I have. And then he sent me to someone else, and who I already been working with. And then they said, what's the issue, Maya? And I said this. And they said, you know what, just come with this sign and you're good to go. And I'm like, thank you. And here we are.
It's awesome.
So you're saying how you're talking to a lot of different people, but do you have a mentor? And if so, who?
I feel like I have a lot of mentors. Like, there's definitely people that reach out to me on a constant basis. I would have to say my top three would definitely be Candace Darrow. She was actually my English teacher in high school that ended up becoming like my best friend and my sister. And every single time, like when I work, because I work part-time at Noah's Ark, and if there was like COVID stats coming out or things like that, or a conference where I wasn't at, but I was having my earphones in, I was listening, I was at work at the same time. And I'd be like, did they just say that? Was that the word they said? Did they say that number? And I'll send it to her, and she'll be watching, goes, yeah, they said that. And then I'll send her some of my posts before I post them. And if there's any little grammar slip ups, she'll like catch it real quick for me. And she's just been like a way of light of everything, because she really does help me out that way, grammarly and with my mental a lot too, just encouraging me. And then Patrina, Pal Girl, we message each other on a regular basis. She's definitely been a newish mentor to me, but definitely has helped me, especially she's really close with my best friend Rashay, who recently passed as well. So through all these last few days, she's been a constant contact for me. And then it will be Dijon of Bermudians. Just really good relationship, really good speaking terms, and throughout these past couple of days, she's helped me a lot too. So yeah,
that's awesome. And so we did want to obviously extend our condolences to you from Jacky and I. We wore green today. We didn't get a chance to wear it last week, Friday, I think it was, when everyone wore green. We kind of missed the memo. So today we was like, okay, we're going to do the green today in honor of your best friend. So once again, we do extend those condolences to you. And we do want to remind the audience, if you have any questions for Maya, if you want to send her any love, make sure you drop that in the comments or run up the reactions. If you're watching on Facebook, give us a like on YouTube. And if you're watching on Twitter, run up those hearts as well.
Back to me.
Of course, Jack, you should know. It's always back to you, because you always got 1,000,001 questions, right?
I know. I'm sorry. So, Maya, we always see at the press conferences how some of our government officials talk to the media. Can you give us your opinion on how government has continuously communicated with the media, how the relationship is, and maybe some things that can be changed?
Okay. So first thing I would say, I actually want to talk about the last press conference, because it was in the AB Place room. I wasn't at the press conference prior, 2 weeks beforehand, because I was, still grieving, still am. But I decided to go to the one recently. Such a different experience than what normally happens in that room. I'll be very honest with saying that there was tension. I was standing along the wall, and I was just like, this is a lot of tension in this room right now. It's like probably 3 different parts that I observed and noticed myself. One was when I came in, I thought, oh, that's so great. There's a lot more journalists than there normally is. It's probably, it's Honest Stats, Bermuda Real, TNN, Royal Gazette, Burn News, and myself, 6, which normally it'll be like 3 or 4, the regulars, TNN, My Palacio, Gazette, and Burn News. Normally it's just that. So it's 6 of us this time. And I walked in, I was like, oh, look at that. And then the panelists, I believe there were 6 too. So I was like, even, that's great, because we only get 4 questions. So at least there'll be, more people to ask questions. So that was my first thought when I walked in. And so I had to stand along the wall because there's obviously no more seating left because there's quite a bit more people in the room. And then, once we got to the question part, even actually when the Premier was talking and the Minister of Health was talking, there was some like snickerings and, eye rollings and, things like that. And they all stand along now, just like, wow, this is different. I mean, there's some things finally when they actually got up to ask questions and persons got to ask questions, they were on both ends a lot of kind of, what's the word I want to use?
Condescending.
It's like nobody wanted to hear each other, I guess. And it was quite evident on everyone's kind of face. So I'm just like, is this the stress of it all? Is this because we only get to show up and ask questions every 2 weeks? Or is it because we feel like our questions aren't being answered? And I can agree to the sense that when we do send in questions to be answered, that they don't always get responded to. And when they do, it is far too late and it's no longer, something that the public, needs to hear anymore. And they kind of, as the date has passed or they've, made their own, they've resolved it themselves. So I would definitely say the word I'd use for the last press conference was tension. And the fact that there were protesters outside of the building as well. Like I couldn't even get in at the beginning with my bike trying to get there and I was a little late. And I was like, oh man, like the traffic was really heavy. And I was just like, okay, this is new. And then questions that were asked on the press conference and the way they were answered, I was just like, yeah, I disagree. But, I'm just going to be here and be as respectful as I personally can. Because there was so much tension, I was trying to make sure that when I stepped up to the mic, I was respectful and I was doing what I had to do professionally. So that's what I can say about it.
And I think we appreciate that as someone who's like, in the same generation as you, we often don't get to be in those spaces. Bless you, Jack. So it's definitely one of those situations where it's like, at least we have someone there. Like that's the first thing. We got someone in the room that can, ask the questions that we want to get the answers to. And then hopefully as time moves on, we'll start to see more media mayas and more reporters and journalists in the space that can, bring the different questions. Because even someone mentioned earlier, they don't feel like the media always asks the hard questions. And so if there's more people in the space, someone else can pick up the questions. Because as you mentioned, y'all only got 4 right now. So hopefully that changes in the future.
And
but we will see.
Answering to that, like people, like, because I think I wrote that one down. Someone said like, yeah, people don't always ask the hard questions. I can say like it's from being in Canada to being here in Bermuda. It's not a good feeling when you personally know people, and in Bermuda, because normally in journalism, you'd be like, hey, don't interview your friends, don't interview people that don't interview your family. Like, like those are the rules when I was away in school. It's just like, all right, cool, that's off limits. But like, it's a big country, and there's tons of stories that that you could work on. But in Bermuda, it's like, oh yes, my cousin does that. Oh yeah, your cousin does that. And it's like, oh, well, I can't really speak to them, but I have to speak to them because like there's no one else. And so we're in a like that in Bermuda, where you see these MPs and ministers like every day, and then they also, everyone in Bermuda is semi-friendly. It's just in that sense, like that's something that you kind of take on consideration. And because of how small we are, it is some fear that you'd be either shadow banned or not allowed to come back. They wouldn't want to speak to you again. They wouldn't answer your questions again if you ask it in a certain way. I mean, some care about that, some don't. It's quite evident. Other times it's also, even because like someone mentioned about investigative journalism and how there's only one full-time one. I think Jamal answered that. It was Sam, at the Gazette. And like, that's something that I really wanted to get into. And it is also very true that it takes months. It takes months when you do an investigative story. Because even in my university, when they had the class, it was like maybe 7 to 10 people in it, and they had to work 3 to 4 months on one story with those people in it to get the story done. And so myself working on 2 stories right now, and it's taking months because, I don't have all the energy to focus on just that one story because, everyone messages me constantly for all these other stories. And I'm trying to narrow down my own focus because I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, I can't do that story. And I can't do that story. I want to do that story too. But like, honestly, it's just too many stories and I'm one person and I don't want to do a lukewarm story or something that's just like, bam, and then let it go. Like someone else said, like a headline story or just something superficial. Like I don't like doing stories like that. It's like when I did the story on Bermuda birth control, like I really spent my time on that one, and then when I did the story about the ghosted by government. I spent my time on that one. And I have 2 other stories that are similar to those that I want to be able to put out, but I still need to spend some more time on them. So it's just, and the smaller stories that I do get to do that might be quick in a day, then those are, fun stories to do, but it's not investigative. Investigative takes a lot of time because you really can't slip up.
Right. And so we actually have this question from an audience member. Sean Smith asks, and I think you may have started to allude to it. How do you choose your stories? And on average, how much time do you spend developing each story? So I know you kind of talked about the investigative journalism, but I guess for the other types of stories that you do, could you answer that?
Sure. I am actually going to go to my notes real fast. So I have actually written down a ton of news story ideas. Yeah. In here, I have 27 in my notes right now that I really want to do. I know depending on, right now, the way I choose my story is how the community is feeling right now, or even the experiences that I'm dealing with that I know someone else has to be dealing with too. Because it is a personal thing. I know people say, got to be unbiased and yada, yada, but at the same time, something that you're going through, someone else could be going through. And that's why whenever people come to me with stories, it's because of what they're going through, and I hear that and I want to do something alongside those lines because someone else could be going through the same thing. Right now, I'm trying to get on a consistent basis where I have, written stories, really nice ones that I really like to do, like the Ghost by Government and the the Bermuda birth control. I want to have those out once a month. And I know that probably seems like that's a long time for a story. It takes a long time for people to get back to you. There have been interviews I'm still trying to get that I've probably done 7 follow-ups to, and I still haven't been able to get interviews with certain people. And it's just time on this side, and also, not it being so on their radar, but it's on mine. There's a story about the revenge porn bill that I really want to do. There's a story on helmets actually that I'm working on. I don't mind if people actually take these stories. For me, I can tell you the story that I want to work on. If you want to take it and do it, then that's great because it might help somebody else sooner if you can finish it before I do. I'm not much of I'm holding in my stories to my heart type person because there's always going to be a story. So to answer your question about how long it would take, let's say I want to do this helmet story, which is basically what I've been thinking about because of all these road topics. And I just want to go into a store in Bermuda, a helmet store, and ask them what is the most safest helmet to the most, least safest to the most safest helmet on the island. And I was going to do a graphic and have each helmet and then have, why they're the most safest and also how long should you have a helmet? When should you buy new helmets? Just simple questions like that. And I think that's something that's really prevalent and important for people who actually just start to get a bike 16 years old. So I just thought that story because I got a new helmet and I hadn't gotten a new helmet in a while, but after my best friend died, I was just maybe I should get a new helmet just in case. And so things happen and story ideas pop up through your life. That's really how it works. You just got to be observant really and ask questions.
That's awesome. So we actually have another audience question, Jack. This one's from Sheldon Ginge, if you want to read it.
Okay. Bermuda media seems to have direct access to sources. Do you see a big difference between asking questions directly to individuals versus speaking to their PR representatives or proxies?
Yes, definitely. And I would not say we have a direct access to sources. I think that seems to be the consensus for most people. People message me well, I know you have an inside thing. I'm I don't have an inside nothing. Just if you guys ask the premier questions and try to get answers, it's the same way I do. But I do have to send it to a media one, which goes straight to the PR communications. So whenever they get back to me, it's how it works. But as a journalist, you really want these questions answered ASAP. You make your calls and your connections and try to get someone to answer these questions right now. Of course, I have some contacts with some ministers that could possibly take me this person, that person. And so it'd take a while to get through. But and if I am really desperate, then I would tweet it and tag them so that other people see it and share it so they can hurry up and get back to me. Things like that. Because it's funny because in the beginning, I was told not to put on such a public platform and tag and stuff like that. If you need something, go speak to someone directly. And it's just when we do that, y'all don't answer us fast enough. You don't. And it takes a while. And as much as we know that you are busy doing other things, if I really need this story done in X amount of time, then I'm going to have to use my platform in a way that, I ask the question and I just simply tag you, which you see a lot, I believe. I feel Bermuda Broadcasting does it a bit. But and the community does it too. So I kind of stopped really with the whole tagging. If I really need something, next time I see them, I'll ask them, and I see them quite often. So that works enough for me. If I have something pressing that I need to ask, so I wait till face to face, because that's a lot better. PR team, yes, they know what to say and what not to say, but sometimes ministers, they love to talk, as people know, so they might say more than they should. So if you could get to a minister, talk to the minister, and then ask the question that you need to ask. There are different responses, yes, from the ministers and the PR team.
So we actually have another audience question for you, Maya. This one's coming from Carmen Mitchell Jr. She says, how have you always been able to maintain your composure at the press conferences? And that's something that I want to know as well, because I have definitely seen and heard and felt the energy that you were describing. And even though we're not there, you can kind of tell sometimes in some pressers that they don't seem like they're very happy with that particular reporter. So how have you been able to kind of, walking into those spaces, been able to kind of keep yourself in a space where you are still being respectful and, holding yourself to a specific ethical code?
I'll be honest, I didn't think I'd ever get that question, because, it says the oldest as day quote that you may hear, treat others the way you want to be treated. And that's just simply how I see it. I mean, sometimes, yes, I'm human, I'm emotional, and even me at the last press conference, it was hard. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, after I finished asking my questions and the premier gave me his condolences to my best friend, I went in the corner and I cried a little, because it's just it's still fresh and new for me, but I am a professional, and this is the job I've taken on to do. And I'm not going to and also I think has to be with the representation, because I do represent a generation, a younger generation. And I know that if one does something, they normally equate that to all. So I'm going to do my best to show up for my generation as respectful as I can, so that they understand that just because we're young doesn't mean we're not capable. It doesn't mean that we don't have our credentials, the work experience, the educational experience, all of that, to be able to do tasks that are what some people might deem to be above us, because it's not. And so I think people need to remember that age is just, just a number, really. If you have the work experience and the education experience to back it up, and the drive to just back it up, even don't even need anything else, and you're respectful, then there it is.
That's amazing. I definitely am grateful to have you. And sometimes you have Mackenzie up there to represent us, because I definitely feel like we want to continue to show them, we're here, we are the next generation, and we're not just taking this lightly. We are trying to put ourselves in these spaces. So every time I see Media Maya, every time I heard them say my plateau of Media Maya, I just go on Twitter. I'm like, Media Maya. And I do my little tweet and I tag her, because I'm like, yes, she's there. Someone's there. We are in the building. And that's awesome. So Maya, listen, Jacky and I can continue on. I feel like the audience can continue on as well, but we don't want to keep you anymore. We know you probably got to get to work. You're probably trying to get a little quick nappy in before you head out the door. So for anyone that wants to follow your journey and continue this conversation or give you some support, how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, you could follow me on @MediaMaya_ on Instagram and Twitter, or you could email me as well. If you have any questions or even story ideas, please feel free to email me any story ideas. I mean, I'll write them down in my booklet and I will definitely get to them. And it's news@media-maya.com. And before I close out, because I know we're going to speak heavy on ethics as well, I always say constantly to people, get to know your journalists, get to know who they are, because as much as we like to be unbiased, and we're taught to be unbiased, we all have our own histories, our own experiences that we do bring to stories that sometimes we don't even realize that we're doing that. But that's because we're people, just like you are. We're just people, and we're just trying to get a story out there, and it can be viewed differently. Because I can definitely say, someone gives me a topic, somebody gives someone else a topic, we're going to have a different story. As much as even going to the same press conference or going to a same, media coverage of an event, we're going to have different stories, and we're going to come up with different takes of what happened. So get to know who your journalist is personally, and then you'll understand how they view certain things and why their stories are written in certain ways. Because then that really helps you understand as to, because when you think that's way off and I would have never said that and that's not how it was, and it's because they differ from you. And that's why when I read some stories by some specific journalists or news companies, I'm just because I wouldn't have written it like that. And that's why it's important who you follow too, because what's on your morning page and things like that, just it speaks a lot to your soul, and I believe that. So it's just like I only follow certain things. I hit off certain words because I don't want that to be in my mental, my mind. I definitely check in on the news every single day. Obviously, I read everyone's stories or most things that are popular, things that I've just peeped at and saw. But yeah, and it's just know who your journalist is so you can understand how they come across in a certain story. And if you don't like how they talk in certain stories, unfollow them, follow somebody else who might be talking about the same topic and has a different viewpoint on it. And that's why representation matters. Because if you're going into or getting news from a company that's like all white males, what do you think the stories are going to be? And from what perspective? Like, and then if you have more diverse, females, things like that, it's specifically talking to you, like She-Hub, you're going to get a lot of women's stories, women empowerment stories. So if you want that, follow that, things like that. So yeah.
Thank you for that. And we actually have 2 comments coming in for you before you get up out of here, Maya. So Sean Smith has a suggestion for you. You should interview the police RPU for a different take on your helmet story, how helmets saved their lives. And we have another one from Karma Mitchell-Jones. She says, you are to be commended for sharing information about what a journalist is. I'm sure many will aspire to your level of journalism and look at you as their mentor, which I concur. I agree with her on that. Once again, Maya, thank you so much for joining us bright and early on this Friday morning. And we hope you have an amazing weekend and stay lifted. And condolences once again on the loss of your best friend.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.
No problem, Maya. Talk soon. So we are actually going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back. But let us know in the comments what you thought of our conversation with Maya Palacio of Media Maya. And we are actually going to also come back with our Feel Good Vibe of the day. You do not want to go anywhere because if you know anything about Mr. Photogenic, he will always be ready with a laugh.
Same smooth sounds, different name. BCG Radio, home of Bermuda's most engaging morning talk shows, The Daily Hour and Good Day Bermuda. Download the app available for Android and Apple devices. BCG Radio, your station for conversations and entertainment.
Welcome back to Good Day Bermuda, supported by Pizza House and Aliana's Restaurant. I'm Terri Tuku alongside Jackie Lambert. Make sure that you give us a care reaction. If you're watching us on Facebook, that's Jackie and I's favorite. But if you're just new to the show, this is the first time you're watching, you can give us any reaction you want. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button. And for all those tweets over there on Twitter, make sure you run up those hearts. Let us know in the comments what you thought about our conversation with Maya Palacio. Jackie and I are going to give you our quick thoughts before we get into the Feel Good Vibe of the day. Jack, what did you think of the convo with Maya?
She's so genuine, honestly. She just wants to get information out there, similar to us, but she's on a different level.
Yeah, I feel like Maya definitely is not only super passionate about the journalism space, but just like making sure that we're informed. I feel like her vision of her brand to make sure that we are as informed as we can be so that we can make certain decisions. I think it's one, I think it was Karma Mitchell-Jones that said she is to be commended because that's a heavy feat for one person to take on by themselves and to be looking to be supported, not only by her peers, but by the entire industry. So as you are letting us know what your thoughts are of our conversation with Maya Palacio of Media Maya, we're going to get into the Feel Good Vibe of the day, which we have a question for you as well. If you remember the game, Where's Waldo? This is definitely the Bermudian take on that. Where's Toto? So enjoy.
Seen as a victory.
I need to know what's going on. Where's Toto? Max, Steve, my boy. Hey,
In some
Max.
ways, he's
Max. You see the music video?
Mr. Belvedere is
Toto.
required.
You ain't set up. Where you again?
Mr. Belvedere has been
Westgate?
required to wear
Police station?
a security bracelet,
Hotel?
but he's apparently
You gotta
being
say
allowed
something,
to
Rob.
go home.
I see you, Toto. In a
He is
limo and
not.
all that. Check
As
your
far
boy.
as we understand, he is
You
not
do it,
being
do it again.
escorted.
See you on the other side.
See you on the other side. And with that, we hope that today's Feel Good Vibe of the day has you ready to make it a great one as well as a great weekend. I'm Terri Tuku alongside Jackie Lambert. We trust we'll see you next week for some more feel-good conversations. Same time, same place. Until the next episode, peace and have a good day, Bermuda.